Not everything important happens out loud. Not all confessions come in the form of words. And not all feelings need a formal announcement to be felt. Sometimes it's in the silence, in the small gestures that almost escape the camera, that the truth feels most clear. That's what many felt when the name Lisbon began to be mentioned by ARMY. A quiet city, filled with soft afternoon light, suddenly became the center of attention not because of a grand stage or a big concert, but because of a series of simple moments between Jimin and Jungkook. Not a dramatic moment, not a long embrace in front of the camera, not even words that could easily be quoted, just an attitude. And precisely because of that, many paused and quietly asked, is this what we've always seen? Or is that what we just wanted to see? In Lisbon, Jimin said nothing, but his body spoke. His movements spoke. The way he stood, the way he looked, the way he instinctively positioned himself. It all formed a pattern that felt too consistent to be coincidence. For some, it was simply a friend's reflex. For others, it was a small fragment of something much deeper. And that's where the curiosity grew. Lisbon wasn't the first time Jimin had been seen protective of Jungkook, but something was different this time. Not because the camera was more intense, but because the energy of the situation felt more real. It wasn't staged. It didn't seem like part of a public routine. It was as if the moment had simply happened, without calculation, without any awareness that the world was watching. Jimin stood a little closer. His steps matched Jungkook's. His gaze never truly left. When there was a crowd, Jimin moved first. When space felt tight, he took a position at the front. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't overly exaggerated, but it was clear enough to anyone accustomed to paying attention to body language. And Jungkook? He let it happen. He didn't resist. He didn't pull away. It didn't seem awkward. On the contrary, there was a sense of calm trust. It was as if Jimin's presence by their side was a given, something that didn't need to be questioned. It was at this point that many armies stopped watching and began to feel. Because if this was just an old habit, why did it feel different now? If this was just friendship, why did the gesture feel so personal? These questions didn't arise from a single clip. They arose from accumulation. Years of interactions, glances, repeated small gestures, and a protectiveness that never truly disappeared. It all seemed to flow to that one point in Lisbon. But this article isn't meant to make absolute claims. Quite the opposite. We need to pause and look at it with a cool head. Jimin is someone known for being highly sensitive to his surroundings and the people he cares about. He's not the type to turn away when someone around him feels uncomfortable. He reads situations quickly, responding without being asked. Protectiveness is part of who he is. Likewise, Jungkook, despite appearing strong and independent, often shows a softer side when around people he trusts completely. So the question isn't simply, is this confirmation? But rather, why does this moment feel so profound to so many people? Perhaps the answer lies in the emotional honesty that radiates. There's no effort to put on a show, no drama, no exaggerated smiles for the camera, just two people moving in unison, as if the world around them were merely a backdrop. Lisbon witnesses this not because something is announced, but because something is accidentally revealed. And often, the unintentional are the most honest. Jimin isn't standing there to prove anything to the public. He's standing there out of instinct, out of habit, out of a feeling so deeply ingrained that it no longer needs to be consciously acknowledged. That's what leaves many speechless after rewatching the moment. There's no emotional outburst, but there's a subtle, lingering feeling. The feeling that we're seeing something real, not manufactured for consumption. Maybe the answer doesn't have to be found today. Maybe it doesn't have to be explained in words. Because sometimes, what's most meaningful isn't what's announced, but what's consistently done. In silence, in consistency, in the courage to keep protecting, even when no one asks. Lisbon doesn't give us answers. Lisbon only gives us hints. And like all good hints, it doesn't shout. It whispers. quietly, letting anyone calm enough to listen draw their own conclusions. Lisbon, that day, didn't feel like a bustling tourist city. In the video clip circulating, the atmosphere was warm and gentle. Sunlight reflected off old buildings, footsteps could be heard faintly, and amidst it all, Jimin and Jungkook walked side by side without a word. What was captivating wasn't their presence, but their manner of presence. Jimin didn't walk too fast, as if making sure Jungkook wouldn't be left behind. Jungkook didn't rush either, as if confident he didn't need to speed up his pace. There was a rhythmic harmony that was difficult to explain if it were merely coincidence. At one point, when the situation felt a little more crowded, Jimin reflexively shifted position. The movement was subtle, almost imperceptible without careful attention. But for those who had long followed Jikook's dynamics, the gesture felt familiar. It wasn't something new. Precisely because of that, it felt honest. For years, Jimin had always been known as someone who protected in a discreet way. He didn't need to announce himself, didn't need to show strength. He protected with his presence, with a reduced distance, with body language that speaks louder than words. And Jungkook? He always lets Jimin be in that space. It's not about who's more dominant or who's more dependent. It's about a quiet trust, a trust that was established long before the cameras landed on them in Lisbon. Many people ask, why does this moment feel so different than before? Maybe it's age, maybe it's maturity, or maybe it's because both of them are now at a stage in their lives where they no longer feel the need to explain everything. What happened in Lisbon felt like a real slice of life. Not polished, not orchestrated. It didn't feel like content. Precisely because of that, it touched something deeper. There was no overly physical contact, no dramatic expressions, just consistent attention. And in a world accustomed to big sensations, consistent attention is often more powerful than 1,000 statements. Some people try to rationalize it. They say it's just a Hyung's reflex toward his dancing. That explanation makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But oddly enough, even though it made sense, that explanation didn't completely ease the lingering feeling after rewatching the moment. Because there was something that couldn't be explained with logic alone. There was the way Jimin perceived the situation before making a move. There was the way Jungkook instinctively adjusted himself. There was a calmness that felt too natural to be fake. This wasn't a moment someone wanted to see. This was a moment that happened. And that distinction is crucial. Lisbon seemed to be the point where many small fragments of the past came back to mind. Not to be proven, but to be re-experienced. Small smiles backstage. Brief glances in the crowd. The way Jimin was often the first to notice Jungkook's change in mood. The way Jungkook always seemed calmer when Jimin was around. None of this happened suddenly. They've been there for a long time. Lisbon only made it more visible because there were no major distractions. No stage,